Welcome everyone to a new mini-series on the 3 weeks and Inyane Avelut. I'm Eli Weber. This is my lifelong friend and chavruta, Rabbi Dr. Gidon Rothstein. And I guess to start, everybody knows such a thing called the 3 weeks. And I asked myself, hey, these certain events happen on Shiva, but Tammuz, 3 weeks later was Tisha B'Av. Is that what the 3 weeks are, or is there something more going on within them that we can see it more as a process than perhaps just a period of 3 weeks between two events?
Do you care which of the two sides is the right answer? No, I think there's definitely a process here. I think that, first of all, the Pesukim talk about Bein HaMitzarim. The Pasuk itself tells us that it's not just happens to be two things, that there was a whole time in between. And there's this very nice idea that's been said for a long time, but that's true every year. But very nice idea, worth saying again every year to remember, that if you notice the way at least Ashkenazi Jews observe the 3 weeks, there's a growth in terms of what we refrain from. Right? You have the 3 weeks until Rosh Chodesh Av, then you have the 9 days, and then you have Shavua Shechalbo, the week of Tisha B'Av, and then you have Tisha B'Av itself going up in the level of Avelut. So
Rabbi Chatzos, and
then Chatzos, yes, and then okay. So Rabbi Soloveitchik made this very important and valuable point that it's like we're trying to work our way into the Avelut. We're growing into the Avelut because this is what's called an Avelut Yeshana. It's an old Avelut. It's a mourning that we've had for, sadly, thousands of years. And I think, and as opposed to when we, God forbid, lose a relative, that's called an Avelut Chadasha. So there, Rabbi Soloveitchik says it's reversed because in Avelut Chadasha, you don't need somebody bringing you into it. It's just sort of, it's already happened to you. You have the feelings all right there. And Halacha sort of guides us as we try to come down from it. And here it's the other way.
It starts with the death.
It starts with the death,
and
right?
Then you
experience that, and then Halacha guides us and takes us slowly out back into regular life. Whereas here we're struggling because we live our lives all year long. We have things that we remember in terms of the Churban all year long, or hopefully. But now we want to really sort of fully remember that. So we put ourselves into that framework, and that's the process. We're trying to get ourselves to a point where when we come to Tisha B'Av, we're again in the frame of mind and frame of experience that it's like we just lost the Beis HaMikdash. You know, Pesach night, we try to relive Yitzias Mitzrayim. And the Bristers like talking about the fact that the Pesukim relate Pesach to Tisha B'Av, and it's always the same day of the week, and they quote that a lot. I think there's an element that we're supposed to ideally on Tisha B'Av also maybe relive the loss, if we could, and get to that point.
But doesn't that leave us a little helpless?
Well,
in the sense that, do we want to keep doing this every year?
So that's a good point. So I think that part of what we think is that the more we can fully experience the loss, the more we'll be zocheh to experience the rebuilding. And I think that the morning of Tisha B'Av, I actually do think, and I think the morning of Tisha B'Av we're supposed to feel helpless. The morning of Tisha B'Av we're supposed to sit there. I don't think it's about. I think the morning of Tisha B'Av we're sitting there on the ground and we're just feeling like it's destroyed. Then, like you said, at Chatzos we start. But yeah, absolutely right. We stay, and that's what we do. And then, but you're right that I think it's true that with an Avelut Chadasha, right, we're experiencing the Avelus because this is where we are right now. This is the stage of life we're at, and we just have to go through. It's
natural.
It's just natural, and we have to. With Avelut Yeshana, every year we experience it. I think there's also an element of we're supposed to also remember we wished we didn't have to do it again. And there's a certain level of disappointment and loss in that as well. And we spend these 3 weeks getting us to the point because we hope that if we were to walk away from this Tisha B'Av, determined that we're going to change and do the things we need to do, and there are things we need that Hashem will give us the Geulah in the next year, I think that determination itself is part of what the value in the Avelut Shana is. It's getting us to the point where we say, okay, this is the year we're going to do it differently and we're going to experience it. And so we're trying to get rid of the Avelut. With regular Avelut, we're going to try to get rid of it. With this Avelut, we hope it never comes back again.
It is. It's funny. Like you, my formative years were in America. Then you make Aliyah and you go to the Kotel on Tisha B'Av. And it's a different experience. It's not like the Beis HaMikdash is there. No one told me in Teaneck. But now we have access to it. Like you feel that you're so much closer. And at least for me, it makes it so much more frustrating.
I hear it. It's a frustrating thing. It's to be that close. To be that close and not yet there is a piece. But I think there's a value in that frustration. Meaning that if you get used to, Professor Tversky, Allah used to talk about the Pasuk in Yeshayahu that the Rambam spoke about, mitzvat anashim melumada. If we turn things into just the thing this is what we do every year, then it loses something because the frustration can be valuable if it moves us to change. And that's, I hope, what frustration is about.
So how is this year's 3 weeks different for you than last week's 3 years or 10 years ago?
Well,
3 weeks.
I made Aliyah recently, so that's helpful for me. Thank you.
What's your goal for yourself? Now you're here.
So my goal is, you come here, then you have to build a life here. And so in building a life here, you have to build a life with new patterns and old patterns. Which are the old patterns you're going to keep? Which are new patterns you want to create and change? I feel like it's a question that comes up every year around Rosh Hashanah and Kippur too. But now around the question of, as we're watching, we live in a remarkably fortunate time to be watching the rebuilding of Eretz Yisrael, which brings with it complicated, difficult questions, frustrating questions where, everybody but me gets it wrong, and obviously me and everybody I meet knows the right answer to these questions. But to work on that and to invest in the working on that, that's something that I guess I'm hoping for, and I think that there's a value in doing that and putting ourselves into that stream. Many, many years ago, our Rosh Yeshiva Liechtenstein was asked about Aliyah, and in his way, he never said yes or no, but I remember vividly him saying, but the future of the Jewish people is here. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of it? So for me, the 3 weeks is thinking about what are the things we can do now as individuals, as groups, as communities, as a nation, that next year won't be the same thing here.
Well, halavai that the future of the Jewish people includes the Beis HaMikdash. Amen.
Amen.
Shkach.